All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something that, wow, it gets people fired up. The carnivore diet. You've probably heard of it. It's an eating plan that's just as simple as it is, completely controversial.
So that really gets us to the big question, right? Is eating only meat a revolutionary path to great health? Or is it just a restrictive and maybe even dangerous fad? To get to the bottom of this, we're going to dig into the thinking of one of its biggest proponents, Dr. Shawn Baker.
Now, Dr. Baker, he knows what people are saying. This quote right here, it nails the common fears he hears all the time. Restrictive, dangerous, bad for your heart. So let's unpack his take on why people are so scared of this diet and how he pushes back.
Okay, so first things first, a diet of controversy. Why has meat been so demonized? According to Dr. Baker, this isn't some new thing. He argues that this bias against meat goes way back, and it's tangled up in history, ideology, and, you guessed it, money.
So here's how he breaks it down. First, he points to history, claiming that some of the very first dietetic groups had religious founders who actually believed meat was sinful. Then he looks at modern science and suggests that a lot of nutrition research is populated by people who already have an ideological bias. They're starting with the conclusion that meat is bad and then looking for evidence to prove it. And then there's the big one, economics. Let's be real, there's not a lot of profit in a simple steak compared to, say, highly engineered alternative proteins or all the processed foods on store shelves. Finally, he points a finger at the government, saying the USDA's job is to promote all of American agriculture, corn, wheat, soy, the works, which makes it really hard for them to ever criticize the very things that go into those profitable processed foods.
And that's a perfect lead-in to what Dr. Baker says is the real dietary villain here. It's not about singling out meat. No, he argues we should be looking at something else entirely.
And this slide just lays it out so clearly. On the left, you've got ultra-processed foods. We're talking stuff made in a lab with ingredients you can't even pronounce, emulsifiers, strange powders. Dr. Baker's point is that this stuff is literally designed to be hyper-palatable, addictive even. It hits our system way too fast and messes with our gut. Then you look at the right side, whole foods. Things you'd find in nature. These foods work with our bodies, telling us when we're actually full and digesting slowly, just like they're supposed to. Okay, so if that's the problem, what's the solution according to him? This is where we get into defining the carnivore diet. Let's get super clear on what it actually involves. And honestly, it's about as simple as it gets. A nutritional approach focused on eating animal-based foods and, well, eliminating pretty much all plant-based foods. We're talking meat, fish, eggs, and for a lot of people doing this, that's the whole list.
So, what's actually on the menu? Well, Dr. Baker sees fatty red meats, think a beautiful ribeye steak or some lamb, as the absolute top tier. But hey, seafood, pork, and chicken are definitely in the mix too. Now, dairy, that's what he calls a gray area. It really depends on the person. Some people are fine, some aren't. Ghee or clarified butter seems to be the one most people can handle. And processed meats, he's quick to say it's all about the details. There's a huge difference between, say, a traditional prosciutto and some deli meat packed with sugar and seed oils. Nuance is key.
All right, I know what you're thinking. An all-meat diet brings up some pretty big questions. So, let's get into it. We're going to tackle the toughest concerns head on and see what Dr. Baker has to say. And here's the big one, the question every scientist asks. But where's the 50-year randomized controlled trial? And look, critics are right to ask this. There just aren't any decades-long, gold standard studies proving this is safe or effective in the long run.
But Dr. Baker's response is basically to reframe the whole debate. He says, look, waiting around for a perfect 50-year study that might never even happen is just not practical. He's focused on results, right here, right now. As he puts it, if I can take someone who is sick today and make them not sick tomorrow, then that is a huge win in my view. For him, it's about helping people who are suffering today.
Okay, let's talk about the elephant in the room. What about cholesterol and heart disease? I mean, for decades, we've been told that red meat and saturated fat will clog your arteries. It's probably the #1 fear people have with this diet. So what does happen to your cholesterol?
Well, to get at this, Dr. Baker did a little N-of-1 experiment on himself. He gets his blood tested, and his total cholesterol comes back at 156. I mean, you show that number to pretty much any doctor, and they're going to say, wow, that's perfect, fantastic. But then, get this, just 38 hours later, after fasting, he tests it again, and it shot up to 346. The exact same person. His point is that cholesterol isn't this fixed, static number we think it is. It's incredibly dynamic, and it changes based on what's going on in your body. So making these huge health decisions based on one single blood test, it might be totally misleading. All right, another big worry you hear all the time. Won't all that protein just destroy your kidneys? It's a really persistent idea, so where does it come from, and what's his take on it?
He uses this great analogy that's super easy to understand. He says worrying about protein hurting healthy kidneys is like worrying about exercise hurting your muscles. Sure, lifting weights puts stress on your muscles, but what happens? They get bigger and stronger. He argues it's the same for your kidneys. The high protein load is a workout that makes them more robust. He says the real danger to kidneys isn't protein. It's underlying diseases like diabetes.
So let's say you're listening to all this and you're intrigued, maybe even thinking about giving it a shot. What's the best way to start? Well, Dr. Baker has two key pieces of advice for beginners, and they might not be what you expect.
Okay, so here's the advice. And step 1 is pretty wild. Eat like it's your job. Seriously. He says don't worry about calories at first, just focus on eating enough good fatty meat until you are completely full. The whole point is to break your body's addiction to those crappy processed foods and their cravings. Then step 2 is all about people. Find your support system. He says having family, friends, or even just an online group that gets it, it massively, and I mean dramatically, increases your odds of sticking with it and succeeding.
And this all really brings us to the final big picture question, doesn't it? We get so much conflicting advice thrown at us from every direction. Vegan, carnivore, and literally everything in between. So with all that noise, how do you actually decide what's right for your health? That's the real challenge. Thanks for watching The Explainer.